Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Everything Went Black podcast. It's been a very rough couple of weeks, but I'm home. I'm doing a lot of traveling for work. Not too interesting places, unfortunately, but taking up a lot of my time on the plane, flying into the hazardous Newark Liberty Airport. I'm sure that you guys, at least in the States here, have heard about how dangerous it is to fly into that airport. So I made it home. I'm okay. There was about 4 hours of delays, but what are you going to do? This week, fellow Horseman Karl Haikara joins us. Now, you guys have heard me and Karl go on and on and on about how great Karl Edward Wagner is on our Darkness Weaves collaborations, but there's other stuff that I want to talk to Karl about. His various bands, the Sol Nox podcast, and Blood Scourge, a new band that Karl is doing with Drugoth. And I have contributed some vocals to a track. So it's really cool. I was honored to be asked to do something with those guys. It was a lot of fun to put aside some time over the weekend, write some lyrics, cut some vocals. It was a great time. As you know, we are all part of a larger conglomerate of content creators known as the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. Kicking things off every other Monday, we've got Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666. Up on Tuesday, we've got Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere, the greatest extreme music podcast in the land. Wednesday, of course, as well as being the day that Everything Went Black posts, under normal circumstances, that is. It's also a double shot day, where Cheyenne brings us Iblis Manifestation. Thursday is Necro Thursday, as well as another double shot day. We've got day one of Sol Nox, and Karl and I will talk about that on this episode. Friday, Spitball Media comes at you. Saturday's a day off, so spring has sprung. Go out, enjoy yourselves, live life, because on Sunday, Karl returns with day two of Sol Nox. Now, if you enjoy this show, that's great. Glad to have you aboard. Tell all your friends, like us on the various social media platforms out there, subscribe, that kind of thing. Or you can put your money where your mouth is and join the Everything Went Black Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get access to bonus content. For $5 a month, you get bonus content plus early access to the regular shows. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor. Karl, for once, we're going to be talking about stuff that doesn't have anything to do with Karl Edward Wagner. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we don't. Every once in a while we get an opportunity to about different things. But yeah.
But what gave me the idea was like we would do the Darkness Weaves episodes, but then it'd spend like at least as long as we spent talking about the book or the short story, talking about other stuff. So yeah. I figured I'd just have you on as a guest to kind of talk about the other stuff, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's become kind of the format with the Darkness Weaves is we talk the story and then we kind of talk about other stuff, usually kind of related though to weird fiction and stuff. But yeah, this time we can kind of get into whatever, so it's kind of nice.
But this came on the heels of my collaboration with you guys, like my contribution to the Antichrist Blood Scourge recording that you just finished, or it's not mixed yet 100%, but all the tracking is done, right?
Yeah, all the main tracking. Basically the only things that at this point that's left is the intro, and then there's going to be some and work on the outro, because the outro is just a sketch right now. So I have a potentially a special guest helping out with the outro which I won't announce until it's actually done. But,
oh shit! Okay, yeah. I'm on the edge of my seat, man.
I'll tell you offline, but not public. So it's getting there, and then one of my friend Malsveer from Deity Undead is going to do a guest vocal on one verse of the second song, The Darkness. So, because I've known him for 20 years, I was like, first music I've done in a long time. I was like, I'm gonna get you on like but it's on and if you can't end up doing it, I have a plan for what I do otherwise, like on that one. But yeah, the one that we did for you, like that was always the intent from when we first came up with the idea of doing the EP was to have. I was like, well, I want to do like a mid-tempo, more Hellhammer type of song and have Mike do half the vocals on it. That was always the goal. That was always the kind of the plan. You know what I mean?
I got to be honest, man. It's really cool. I just being asked to contribute stuff like this is always really, really honor for me, man. Especially, like we got our own little group of guys here, and it's cool that we collaborate together, and I'm really happy with the material, the Blood Scourge material too, man. It's fucking brutal and raw and bestial. Yet there's these things in there that jump out that make it like more than just like a straightforward like war metal-esque, bestial black metal recording. You know what I mean? There's like these little subtleties in there which I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, I didn't want like, I guess when Drew Goss and I first started talking about doing this like 2 years ago, um, like it was almost like we were more like kind of like, oh yeah, like let's do something that's basically like a tribute to Archgoat style stuff, and then very quickly it started morphing into something else. But now like we've gotten like more further. We just had those two songs on the demo, and now we're really getting to work on it with the EP. It's kind of like by this point, like I'm like, no, I don't want it to just. I mean, the big thing is neither one of us want it to be just like a uh, just another one of those kind of bands. Like we want to be doing something that's different. And really, all I'm doing is taking kind of where I left off with my old Verkolicus project and bringing it to life with a great drummer and as a collaboration with him as well, because he's doing he's setting out the entirety of the structures. So like, cause like Drigoff's writing the drum beats and creating the structure at the same time, and I'm writing to the structures that he's creating. I'm writing the riffs to the structures. So
That's pretty cool.
So he's structuring everything with the drum beats, and then I write all the riffs to what he's done. And then almost all the songs except for the one we did, and then the final song, he and I also collaborated with all the lyrics as well. So, but yeah, the big thing is I don't want it to sound like I want to bring in different elements. So like, for example, like the first song, there's like heavy riffs, but then also like there's a riff that is using like the kind of, Norwegian black metal, orthodox bar chord. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's like keyboard parts here and there. The one we did have like some doom riffs, like it's like, I want to bring, I listen to so much to tons of music. Like those things are gonna creep in my opinion, like things from different, but it's still always gonna be rooted in this kind of like very kind of more, I guess, barbaric black metal stuff. You know what I mean?
Now the synths, are they actual synths? Because I know on the track that we worked on together, it was a guitar that actually sounded like a synth that I commented on.
Yeah, on some of the other songs, there's actual keyboards. Yeah, so and it's just I have like an ancient Yamaha from the '90s that I got like that. I use like old digital keyboard. It has a lot of great sounds on it, and then yeah, that song like it's funny because Drew Goff thought it was a synth as well, and it sounds like it. And I mean, it's literally just like the Behringer V amp thing I got has these like effects on it, and I did like the chorus and delay one, and you don't have that much control over the effect really. That's the downside of the thing, but at least you can kind of do. But then I just was using the HM2, the Waz HM2 I have, and just playing it. But what I think part of what makes it sound like a synth though is that there's like two layers so that are octaves of each other.
Yeah.
So when you're actually hearing the riff, there's three octaves of the same notes. So it creates like this kind of synth feeling. There's another the final song in the album has something similar where I was playing like a higher octave guitar of the riff and ended up for some reason it ended up sound I put a flanger on one of them and it ended up sounding kind of like a synth. So I think it might be partly also this V-amp thing. The effects on it are kind of wonky, but it's a cool effect.
Those are like the cool things that you find out there. These kind of they're like these archaic sort of pieces of equipment that do one or two things really well. And when I say really well, maybe technically not well, but they sound cool, you know. And that's always those are always the coolest things to use, man, because it's very unique sounding. Like not everyone's using gear like that, so it makes it have a very like unique characteristic, and I think that's so sick, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been part of the reason it's taken a while to get to the point of us going from the demo stuff to doing the CP is I've been trying to figure out what to get for amp because the way I operate is I basically run everything through the amp because of like I have an ancient computer and stuff. I don't really have don't really want to do too many plugins on it or whatever. But also, if I kind of comfortable with that, like I like having something tactile and the good thing. And so I kind of stumbled upon. I was like, okay, I want to get like a modeler of some sort, but a lot of the new modelers are fucking expensive. So
Yeah.
then I was looking at the old Line 6 pod, and those are good. Those are actually getting kind of pricey now. They're like over $100, like the Pod 2.0 or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then I just saw a video on YouTube about this V-Amp 2 Behringer, and it's literally just like a fucking, it's like their knockoff version of a pod, you know, because Behringer has no shame. They will literally knock anything off, right? So like,
Yeah, yeah,
and
totally.
do like a cheap version, and I watched the video. It sounded okay to me, and I found it for like $45 on a Sweetwater Gear Swap, and got it, and it blew everything open because literally like I kind of knew what sound I wanted to get. Like I knew like the thing is I've been on the hunt because I knew exactly what guitar tone I wanted. I mean I use my Waza Metal Zone for distortion, um, but it does matter kind of what amp you're running it through. You know what I mean? And this one has a really good Bassman model. So that's what I'm running the Waza Metal Zone through the Bassman model, and a lot of treble, and it sounds great. And then I run everything else through, you know, bass, vocals, keyboards, the whole shebang's going through it, and it's got like 9 reverbs and a bunch of effects. But like the effects are kind of wonky because you don't have that much control over what they do, and because like you have. There might be a way to get into the menu where you can change the settings on it, but I haven't figured that out yet. But when you just use the basic effect, like you'd have like a knob that turns it up or down, and it kind of it's weird. But the upside of that is you get some weird fucking effect sounds. You know what I mean?
I mean, when you told me about this thing and I looked at it, I looked it up, and it literally looks just like a pod. You know what I mean? It's like one of these like like you're on point when you said Behringer has no shame, man. It's like it's like it looks you could mistake it for a pod very easily.
Except for it's blue and has instead of a kidney bean, it's kind of like a guitar. I guess it's kind of like a Telecaster shape, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. It comes to mind this like I don't know, like 20 years ago, I was driving through West Virginia on tour, and we saw like a what looked like a Dunkin' Donuts, right? And so we pulled in, and we went into the store, bought coffee. We went out to the van, took a sip of the coffee, and I mean, I'm not a fan of Dunkin' Donuts, but we're in West Virginia. You know what I mean? There's not many options. It
Yeah.
tasted like horrible, like not, and that's horrible compared to horrible Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Yeah.
I looked at the cup, and it said the same colors, even the store, the same colors, everything. Dippin' Donuts. So like I mean, except this Behringer V amp thing sounds awesome, you know, but it's like the same kind of thing where it's like I'm looking right now online. There's a Behringer V amp 3, which is that same kind of like metal flake red color that the pod is. You know what I mean? Like that typical red color.
Yeah, they made it look more like a pod with the third one. Yeah, because the third one's like red color. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
the
is pretty
rules.
funny. But I think that's partly because Line 6 doesn't make that style of pod anymore. So I think
Yeah,
Behringer was like, well, we can make it look more like a pod now because they're not making them anymore. And
yeah. You have the blue
but
one though, right?
yeah, I have the VM too.
Yeah.
And apparently the Pro one, some bands actually use them like Tranquility, I guess,
Oh,
used
no shit.
the Vamp Pro, which is like a rack mounted unit. But yeah, I mean, I mean, it does what I want. Like I've cycled through some of the other amp sounds on it, and it's got a pretty good twin reverb sound, and pretty good. The Marshall sounds aren't too bad. Um, I'll probably dig into it more with some other stuff I'm going to work on this later this year, but um, like it's got a good solid Bassman model, and you can use Bassmans for pretty much anything. So
Yeah.
and the big thing with it is the cabinets aren't too great, but there's like uh a, there's about two, maybe three of the cabinet models that are actually that are good. Some of the other ones are pretty bad, but like that's pretty common with the older ones. But I mean for me, like I'm happy, and and it broke everything open because now I'm able to do what I want, like in general, because it has a good range of stuff, and uh and I don't know. I mean, for me, I'm definitely a tactile person, so there's something about, even if it's not like the fanciest gear, you know what I mean? It's like I have knobs, and
Yeah.
I'm
No,
running shit
it's
through, and I think it sounds good. I mean, I think that the guitar tone is that I'm getting it's good for what I want, because black metal doesn't need to be fancy. I mean, like something like Joe and I are doing a new series about Funeral Mist, and something that I learned about Devilry and Salvation from watching a video that Necromorbis did is that they recorded the guitars, like, well, they recorded everything through um it was a Digitech rack mounted multi effects unit called like a DS2101 or something like that. I pulled it up, but it's like and basically for the guitars for Devilry and Salvation, the guitar tone is just the distortion sound on this rack mount unit plugged straight into the console. Like,
it's
and
great. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
sounds great. I mean, I love the guitar tone on those albums, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing that's really cool too is like you were saying, you don't use plugins. So like you're running like like the sound right into your computer, like through your interface, and you're tracking the actual guitar sound. Like I know like nowadays like people, like run DI signal and they put in whatever amp they want over that. But this is like the thing I like about it is that it's like you get what you are. You're capturing what you're actually doing. You don't have it. There's no doing it over. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a primitive and old school person in that way. Like, I guess, like, I get that. I honestly get, because like I know you guys did it. I know Aquis does it. A bunch of bands do like the thing where it's like tracking in and reamping and stuff, and it's a cool, definitely, I feel like you can get a lot of. I mean, that is like kind of the standard now for a lot of bands, but for me, I don't really have that option. I don't have that kind of shit. I don't even have anything to reamp to, so there's no point. You know what I mean? So it's like I just I try to get the sound I'm going for going in, and that's kind of I guess my approach in some ways. Like I treat the computer like a glorified 4-track, and I think that comes from years of recording on a 4-track cassette recorder. You know what I mean? Like, I just approach it the exact same way. I used to record stuff to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's great, man. I dig it. And like I said, it sounds killer. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the final mixes. I mean, it's pretty close. The stuff that you sent me is like pretty close to being done, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I was kind of mixing as we go, so I have less work to do in the end. And yeah, I mean, basically at the end, all I'm doing is if I have to run maybe a little bit of EQ on something to boost or cut something that's that kind of stuff. That's pretty much the only post effects I'm doing. But like I will. One thing that I remember reading, because I remember when I was trying to learn how to record to a computer, I I did a lot of reading on. Did you ever read like Sound on Sound like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a lot of reading through Sound on Sound with like interviews of producers and engineers and stuff, and a lot of them were saying that the most important thing, particularly for home recording, is to get a good sound going in, whatever
Right.
that is. So, they would always recommend having a really good preamp of some sort if you're doing direct like line ins stuff, like to make sure that your interface and preamps and shit are really good, so that you're getting a really good sound. And a lot of them were recommending doing as little, like there's definitely a lot of guys who are as little post plugins as possible to like get a really good sound going in, and then mixing is really just EQ and panning essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
mean, I don't consider myself to be any kind of recording engineer, but like usually with EQ, I'm just cutting stuff, you know what I mean? And like, you know, and then reverb. That's it. Like I try to get everything kind of dialed in like when I'm recording stuff at home. I mean, I use like plugins for this guitar amps, the modeling though, but I try not to play around with playing around with the guitars, like maybe just like some compression or something like that.
yeah, and even if you're using the plugins, you can also still run through your pedals, into the
Yeah.
plugin. You know what I mean? Like, um, I know that I have friends who like my friend Anoff does that. Like, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think that there is something to be gained from utilizing some at times like a particularly. I guess there's also a thing like if you're making black metal that's kind of a bit more on the barbaric side, like you could get away with a lot more, you know what I mean? But like also like I have a bit more of extreme concept for tone and stuff like I've cut most of the bass out. Like my guitar tone is more treble,
Yeah.
harsher. I guess my model is like Bathory under a Sign of the Black Mark, where you have like a really loud drums, really loud bass, like distorted bass, and then the guitars are more trebly. You know what I mean? That's kind of the model. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I guess like I kind of miss that kind of buzzsaw, garbage can, black metal guitar, because I think that there's been a lot less of that in more recent years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, as like black metal has become more popular, there's people or bands are looking to actually, you know, have people that aren't necessarily black metal people like their music too, and they're going to production extremes, like a band like Marduk or like Watain or something, are bigger than just having black metal fans these days. I mean, their records sound great, but they haven't, there's other things in mind when they're making their records, it seems like.
Yeah. Although I think Marduk generally tends to have a bit more of that kind of harsher guitar tone. I probably because Morgan uses a metal zone as well. So, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
I think but there's definitely a lot of bands. I think the other side of it too, though, is that a lot of black metal guitarists, I mean, they've that the lure of gear is ever present. So they're buying like $2,000 angle, fireballs and stuff like that, and like it's going to change the kind of tone texture of black metal from guys playing like on cheap
Great.
amps. Yeah, a crate with a fucking, metal
Metal
zone
zone.
or something. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like but I don't know, but I do like that kind of 90s guitar in late 80s kind of black metal guitar tone though. Like, so, like, you can take it too far, and some bands do, but, I always love that kind of tone of like, a blazing northern sky and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Lately, I've been listening to a lot of clandestine Blaze material, and that if you those records, the way those sound is really fucking cool, man. It's like very like what we're talking about, sort of the mix and performances are awesome, and the tones are super raw, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Like the ideas in the songs, like the musical ideas in the songs are like really kind of developed, you know what I mean? And the tracking, like the guitar tones, the drums, everything is like it sounds like it was just recorded in a room somewhere. But the way that Like the mixes are always very balanced on those records, you know.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing that with what I do with the Antichrist Blood Scourge in particular, when you're talking about like getting this thing going in, is that a lot of the songs, the guitars are one take from beginning to end. There's a few times where I've had to, where I've had like, uh, maybe it's maybe two sections, right? Because I messed up on, and I just didn't feel like re-recording the whole thing. But it's definitely not like, I didn't record a section and then loop it or
Yeah,
something. Like it's
yeah,
literally recorded, and I couldn't do that anyways because I mean I'm recording to live drums, and Drew Gods, I don't think he records to metronome, so it's there's no click or anything. Like it's real live, and so I want to retain that feeling with guitar playing. So it's primarily like you know one take on one side, one take. There's only two main guitars on the whole on all the songs. Like I did experiment with doing, two on both sides,
hmm
but then I've decided it was muddying shit up, so I just did one and on both sides and then it made it easier. So like when you're doing like a guitar overdub in certain sections, or it kind of stands out a little bit better.
yeah.
So
I've been trying to use that approach on like I have like a new Scorpion Throne EP that's it's written, the guitars and everything are done. Drum, it's a demo, quote unquote, but uh when I record the final version of it, like when the drums are done, my plan is to just kind of one take everything. Like not because I get very granular about punching in and stuff like that. And I think that for the Scorpion Throne stuff, because it's like the songs are simple enough and pretty straightforward, that I'm just gonna like if I fuck something up, I'm just gonna leave it in. I'm just gonna keep going and like just unless I completely blow it, you know what I mean? Obviously.
yeah.
But if there's something that's like a little loose, I'm just gonna leave it, man, and just kind of move forward in that direction of just making it more about feel as opposed to precision, you know?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the band. Like some bands you need it to be more precise, but if you're some bands, if it's going to be more out to feel, like it's kind of it's fun. I mean, definitely Blood Scourge it's about the feel, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's kind of, I mean, obviously I'm not gonna leave anything that's like totally fucked, but like you it's not like everything's super precise. And yeah, and to me I really like that approach with that kind of stuff. Like you said, Clandestine Blaze has that a lot. Like a lot of black metal I like, and even a lot of the well, one thing I love about a lot of the old '90s like noise rock and shit like that is it has that kind of vibe too. Like a lot of those albums were played obviously all together in a studio. Like um. And that's something I noticed too, is like there was definitely a big difference between bands who weren't recording with a click back in like the 90s, who were just like playing together.
Yeah.
You can really tell the difference between those kind of bands and bands that are like everything's like super tight. You know what I mean?
Well, that goes all the way back even to like, that the concept of doing that for me too. Like just I've been thinking about this a lot because that's the Scorpion Throne stuff is like the next thing I'm going to be working on that's still coming together. And that's even like listening to the first Black Sabbath album or like early Zeppelin, it's like they're just going there's no punching. It's just we're playing the song. Boom. We replayed it, rehearsed it in the space. We played it out many times as that. We played it and then they just get down and do it. And that's it's it might not be the tightest recordings, but there's like energy in it, and it's cool. And especially the drums, man. Like if you listen to like first Black Sabbath record, the tempos drift and like it's loose sounding and it's just really cool. It just adds this like awesome like feel to it, and I in a way I want to get back to doing stuff like that just because for years and years and years everything has been done to a click and like all like punching everything in and just all this like very detail oriented recording techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it definitely gives a new dimension to stuff. And I mean, a lot of the those old bands was to the point like when the Stooges did Funhouse, for example, they recorded everything, including the vocals, all together in a room, and they had Iggy going through a guitar amplifier, and they were miking the guitar amplifier, and he
That's
was
pretty cool.
and so he had the effects on it and stuff, and he was able to hear the sound, and he was using like the as like its own, like he could
Yeah.
tell like how much reverb was going as he's singing, and he could change the effect a little bit, and some bands, yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, you can hear the full Funhouse tapes where it's like fucking, they just did takes of the songs and picked the best takes, right? So it's like I think it's cool. I mean, that's something that I feel like goes back to, yeah, like early recording back when, they still only had 4 tracks or whatever, like
Yeah, yeah, totally.
it's totally different.
But on the other side of the fence, though, there's the silver chord stuff that you're doing, and you got new stuff you're working on with that project too, right?
Yeah, that's my next thing. So we want to get started on that. So now I'm finished because I recorded the Blood Scourge GP in like a week. It was like this like feverish like
That's the
stage. I was
best.
just blasting through it. So then I was like, well, I want to continue working on stuff. So we're gonna start working on a EP for that. But that's total opposite field because it's particularly with what we're planning for our new material. I mean, we're using our drum machine. We had our Zoom drum machine that we always used back in the day. We're using that, so it's pretty simple because we're basically like one drum beat all the whole song. But then we're kind of shifting a little bit. It's kind of getting back to what our initial idea was like 20 years ago when we started the band, and we kind of veered off into other directions that were cool. But we kind of wanted from the start I guess like be a bit more keyboard based and like the big things for us was like The Cure, Pornography, Joy Division, Closer, obviously like Depeche Mode like was a big influence on us, and but we're really wanting to do stuff that's like real dark and the kind of this EP we're working on. I think we're going towards the direction of a little bit more like the Pornography and Faith, like those types of sounds. Like that first song we did, I think is definitely kind of in that vein a little bit,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you know,
definitely. Yeah,
our own version of that kind of thing.
yeah, pornography's the darkest Cure record, in my opinion. That one's the one that has like the sort of grimiest like vibe to it, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, it's my favorite. That one and Faith are my favorites, and they're a little bit different because Faith's got songs like Funeral Party and stuff, which are more mournful, I guess, where Pornography is like you're going through a mental breakdown kind of music, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what is awesome, but that's definitely like a big, particularly for the drum beats. Like, we always end up doing kind of drum beats based around Pornography ideas, like, because just and also the driving bass of like Simon Gallup is a big influence on me on bass, and that even comes out within the Blood Scourge stuff because I kind of, but I do distort the bass more with it, but my bass playing style is definitely more Simon Gallup than it is like I don't know, like some other stuff, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that dude's one of my favorite bass players. Just his tone, like that sort of chorusy, like thick, like bass sound is definitely one of my favorite bass players. I know that Jeff too, Jeff Kashid, that's like he's like really into Simon Gallup too. That's always been one of his favorite bassists.
Yeah, that's like his favorite bass player, right? Like
Yeah,
The Cure is his favorite band.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You can tell in the ISIS stuff, definitely.
I definitely think so. Yeah, it's like playing with a pick. It's like a lot of down picking. Like Simon Gallup just kind of down picks for the most part. You know what I mean? Like and drives very driving bass too. That's part of why I love Pornography is that the bass is really the main instrument throughout most of that album. You know what I mean? Like there's songs where there's no guitar, there's just bass and keyboards, and so that's kind of a little bit of the blueprint. Like there's gonna be guitars on this new Silver Chord, but they're gonna be my plan for the guitars is somewhere in between the guitars of Pornography and Cocteau Twins Garland. First Cocteau Twins
That's
out,
my favorite. That's
yeah.
my favorite Cocteau Twins record,
Yeah,
definitely.
me too. And that's another one that's a big influence with the drum beats and stuff on us. So like, and I really love the guitar tone, like with like all the delays and everything. And so I kind of like this idea of wouldn't it be cool to combine like Pornography type of style stuff with like Garland style guitar tones, So we'll see. It's gonna be an experiment, you know.
That Garland's record is like very minimalist, like everything's very to the point on that record. It seems like it's like the drum beats are very, very simple and very minimal, and the guitars are very repetitive, and it creates this vibe that really it's like their standout record in my opinion, Cocteau Twins.
Yeah, yeah. And all the songs have like one drum beat.
Yeah.
Which is part of the influence on us because it's like we don't even really know how to do. I don't know how to program beat drums on the drum machine, so it's just I know how to program drums with just like one beat. So these,
Yes.
I don't know how to make it until like where there's different beats playing. But so I don't worry about it. And so yeah, that kind of thing. Like and it's basically just bass, guitar, vocals, and drums is really cool. And that one and what's the second album called? It's called Head Over Heels.
Oh, the
Like
Cocteau Twins second record.
yeah,
Yeah.
those are the two best Cocteau Twins, and she also has lyrics on it, which is a bonus. Like real
Yeah.
words. She's thinking real
Gar
words. Yeah,
Garland's is just sort of like she's just going for it. Yeah.
yeah. There's real words on those first two albums. I get a little annoyed with the fucking nonsense language on some of the later Cocteau Twins. I have to be honest. I'm not big on that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. So the synths are they now this is the other thing too, which I find, and I think I already know the answer to this is in like modern recording or whatever, you get your computer and you have like a MIDI interface keyboard and you can have unlimited sounds and all that sort of stuff. And you can track in one thing and then change it to something else. Now, are your synths analog signals in or what? What's the deal with the synths?
Yeah, so I'm using right now. I have like I said, an old Yamaha from the '90s that I had since I was a kid. A digital keyboard. Um, and I also have an electric piano, and like I need to get an actual synthesizer of some sort. Um, and it's running through all my guitar effects into the V amp
Yeah, see, that's cool.
and into the computer. So, and like, because uh, now, and I can do more. I can do stuff with the pedal, guitar pedals or whatever, and different sounds on the V amp. I still haven't quite figured out the best like model to use with keyboards. I'm just trying out with the Bassman model right now, and it sounds pretty cool. And I mean, I'm going for. Again, like we're going for that kind of 80s feeling. And on the first song I did, I used the synth string sound on the keyboard through, and the way the setup I had, and with the sustainer pedal, it ended up sounding very much like that kind of ARP string synthesizer sound from the late 70s. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, but that's the way you're doing it makes it like you have your own thing, that which is cool. Because like I was saying like earlier, if you got like a MIDI setup and like, this is where I'm going to use this patch, but like a million other people use that same patch and it's the same shit that they're using. You know what I mean? It's not like, yeah, of course you run it through, you process it in different ways, but it's essentially the same patch that like 2,000 other dudes are using in their songs. So it's kind of cool that like you have this like piece of equipment that pretty much probably only the one they all sound distinct, like any kind of guitar or amp or pedal. There might even between models because of the age and the different circuitry and all that sort of stuff and the way you're connecting it with the pedals and how you're setting your reverb and your distortion, it's going to sound unique and have its own flavor, you know what I mean, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, that's the benefit of it. And I have other stuff because I have like old like Radio Shack Concert Mate like keyboard, which has a few okay sounds on it, and the electric piano I have is kind of funny because it's kind of janky, but it's like from an old church or something. But um, I'm able to make it do really fucked up sounds. Like that's mainly why I like it because it you can lower the octave really low and it has like a weird chorus effect, and then you use a sustainer pedal and it has like one that's like this like infinite sustain on a piano,
Wow.
And then when you like lower the octave enough, it makes this like broken piano sound. It's like you can do some cool stuff with it. That's the big thing I like about it. Like I mostly use that to create like drone sounds and
Yeah.
stuff and weird creepy sounds. Although it has a pretty nice like string sound on it and piano sound obviously because it's electric piano, but you know, the thing like I do want to get like an actual synthesizer of some sort because the one thing I am lacking is the problem with these digital keyboards from like the 90s is that the synth sound like the straight up synth sounds aren't too great on them. You know what I mean? Like so that's a bit of a limitation. Like you don't have like a good analog synth sound on it type of sound.
Uh-huh.
Um so you know, eventually I want to get a you know, I don't know, like an ARP or something or the one that Brandon got that Moog whatever the fuck it's called. That's pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
the one that Brandon got, it's really
Yep.
sick.
Yeah, and also those are coming down in price too, though, because like a lot of people are using like plugins, like an actual piece of equipment. It's either really, really expensive or reasonable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and some vintage gear is reasonable. So I recorded a podcast with the main guy from Some Days Are Darker, that band I sent you a while back,
Yep, yep.
and he and I were talking about keyboards and stuff, and he bought like a Roland RS-09
Hmm.
from the 80s or late 70s 80s. So it's like an organ string synthesizer, and you can get this guy for like $400-$500.
Yeah, that used to be
Like
like probably thousands of dollars back in the day.
it was the slightly cheaper one from what I understand in the 80s, like, but probably was still like $1,000 back, you know,
But
and
I mean,
maybe
with inflation, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like in today's prices, it would be like a couple grand, a few $1,000 probably.
Yeah. And yeah, so but it is an analog string and organ synthesizer. I want to get that because he was telling me that it makes the string side of it makes the kind of sounds of like Joy Division closer strings, you know, like those. That's so it's pretty similar to the ARP string synthesizer, but it's an affordable version because the ARP string synthesizer is like $2,000.
Yeah,
You
dude.
know?
I mean, it's fun. It's fun doing this stuff because I have no idea how to play piano. I have not a clue on what I'm doing on a keyboard, really. You know what I mean? But I just do it. I just go for it. And I'm not as I mean, I haven't done enough cool stuff to the extent that maybe you have with synths. You know what I mean? But the little
I haven't done that much.
no, but you've done more than I have. It's like you've had constructed songs with using synths, and I've just used it like as intros and like little pieces. But what little I've done, it made me really interested in exploring it more. And like I said, it's like I have no, I mean, I know a little bit of like where the notes are and everything, but like I'm not a piano player or I'm not someone who can play piano or any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of feel it out, makes it really fun, you know?
Yeah. I I took piano when I was younger, so I had to learn how to read notes, and I know where all the notes are on a piano, but the I don't I could I would struggle a little bit to actually read notes for a piano now, particularly for the left hand, like maybe for the right hand. But that's not the. At least I know where the notes are. It's kind of
Yeah.
helpful, you know what I mean? Particularly for going when I need to formulate what I need to play to like play a keyboard part over, you know, like say Blood Scourge riff, and I want to do a keyboard section over it or whatever. Like I have to like that's a little bit. Even I add layers to my issues with that because I notate when I write down the notes for the riffs. I note instead of doing like tablature or something, I write down like the note that it would be if it was in standard tuning,
Right.
but I'm in like C with drop B flat or whatever. So then I have to like figure out in my head like like okay, so E in standard tuning is actually like whatever fucking C or whatever, you know, in this tuning. So then I have to like write that out, formulate that, so then I can figure out what to play on the keyboard. Like it's
that's the thing. Like when you're playing guitar and bass, it's like you're thinking in terms of standard tuning, like E, and all that, EAD and all that. But yeah, when you're actually finding the notes on a keyboard, you have to remember what you're tuned to and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's a little extra layer, but it's okay. So that's the benefit of knowing where the notes are on the keyboard. But keyboards are actually pretty easy with that because there's literally just one little section of there's 12 notes. So and it just repeats up and down in octaves. So
yeah.
But I mean, like my friend Ken, I mean, for his project Art of Malice, he doesn't know where the notes really. He knows like kind of basically where the note, like some of the notes are. He knows where C is and stuff. So. But he just does that stuff by feel, you know what I mean, and just puts it all together, and that's his kind of like electronic, weird side kind of industrial project, right? But it's like you don't really. It all depends, like particularly if you're going straight like synth music, like you can really just go by feel in the same way that if you're just doing straight guitar music, you know what I mean? You just have to do that kind of like figuring out when you're trying to layer synths over guitars or whatever. So what totally. I
mean? And sometimes it doesn't work out, especially if your guitars aren't, intonated the right way and stuff,
Yeah. Although sometimes if the guitars go slightly in and out to the keyboard, it can sound cool, but not if they're like too far out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I want to learn more about like actual synthesizers. That's like one of the things I'd like to learn more about because like I don't do like like I look at like the setups of like fucking Skinny Puppy and stuff like I'm just like back in the 80s and how they had it all hooked together and I'm like these guys are fucking geniuses. Like I'm like looking at this shit and I don't even know what you're supposed to do like or how to even operate like one of those like a Moog, like an old Moog, like with all the fucking like patched chords and I don't know what are you doing with that. I mean I feel like a total dummy, like you know what I mean, like so I'd like to learn more about like how synthesizers work and how you connect things MIDI, like say like a drum machine to a synthesizer so they're in time with each other, that kind of stuff. Like
that's like real deal shit. That's like stuff that that's like an electronic musician would know about that kind of shit, and that's I admire that, because I just never spent the time to do those things because I was interested more for most of my life in just making guitar music,
Well, that's the one thing that I get a little annoyed at when you hear like metal musicians or rock guys like talk shit about electronic music.
No.
And I'm like, you guys are talking shit because you never tried to make it. Like, as soon as you try to make electronic music, you all be like fucking like. Don't no idea like your fingers in your asshole, like you have no idea what you're doing, you know what I mean, like these guys, like it's a miracle, like any kind of like, electronic music, particularly if you're doing old school the way the guys did it in the 80s, it takes way more skill than the dude just picking up a guitar, you know what I mean?
Yeah definitely with all the sort of like you were saying before patches and like all these like tactile like connections and that makes it very challenging. And you would see these big rigs that these guys had out on stage, back in the 80s, these like, but then again, like I saw White House, I don't know, like 15 years ago, maybe. And they just had laptops at that point.
That's the downside now. Like it's not quite the same. Like you can, but programming stuff good is still an art. Like, programming well. I can't. Yes, nowadays you maybe can't quite say the same, but it still takes a pretty good amount of skill to make electronic music sound good. Although less now. There was a period of time where it was more difficult because a lot of times when people were just programming stuff, it wouldn't sound too. Like it would take more work. But if somebody's doing it old school with like real analog synthesizers and stuff, though, that's a lot of work. But yeah, particularly back in the 80s, like I used to have like the VHS for Skinny Puppy on there. I believe it was the Cleanse, Fold, and Manipulate tour.
Yeah.
And that's on YouTube nowadays. But yeah, if you look at their rigs, I mean, they both got like Kevin Key and what's his name got like these fucking like giant stacks of fucking shit, and they're just like, and that's like a small amount. Like that's like their pared down thing to make all the sounds they need to make, and it's wild. I mean, that's such a pain in the ass to set up, like for a live show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And then, all the different stuff they layer in there, like all the different sounds. It's like, you like you take it for granted when you listen to that stuff and you're like, there's some sound. Like forget about the keyboards, like some sound they sampled from something and manipulated that and modified it and like dropped it in pitch and did all these things to it. It's like it's so cool, because I'm just now like starting to do things like that myself. You know what I mean? Like I recently have gotten really into doing more like ambient kind of droney stuff that I'm using live with the band when we play, for interludes and intros and stuff. And for like a really long time, I was like recording stuff just out especially when I lived in Brooklyn, I would go out in the subway, record noises and people talking and shit like that and weird chanting like down in the subway stations. There'd be these, monks and all that stuff. And
yeah.
And I used all that stuff. It's all being used. Like I'm taking it and manipulating it. And that's totally an inspiration from bands like Skinny Puppy, who you listen to like these sounds. And I'm like, what the fuck is this sound? And it could be anything. He could have recorded it somewhere in the field and just what it ended up sounding like is completely different than what it actually is,
Oh yeah. And there's some bands like I think I've showed you the Black Queen, like the Greg Puciato's old side project he did with Josh from Telephone Tel Aviv. They did the album Fever Daydream. When they did that album, apparently almost all the drum sounds on it some of them are sampled from like old drum machines, but some of them are sampled from like video games and shit. And they just like, they took like a sound and manipulated it and then put it like programmed it to be like the drum beat. Yeah. Like, it's wild. You could never tell like it sound, you know what I mean, when you listen to it, but it gives it like its own unique quality, when bands do that, because it's like, you're not just using that's a way to also achieve that thing of like not just using the standard packaged stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
Is to make your own sounds and throw them in a sequencer and stuff like that, or a sampler. So like,
yeah, that dude Greg is like very talented. Like he's I don't know him that well, but like we played a couple festivals together, and he's a really nice dude, at least in my experience with him, and very very talented singer, and all of his other. I mean, I actually like the stuff that he did outside of Dillinger Escape Plan. I'm not even a big fan of Dillinger Escape Plan, honestly, but
no, I like the Black Queen that he did, and his solo music. I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of Dillinger Escape Plan at all. Like,
I'm not either, actually. I that kind of stuff, like, I mean, those guys are incredible musicians, but they're just not my cup of tea, really. You know what I mean? But the stuff that Greg does on his own, I find way more interesting.
Yeah. I got into the Black Queen like when the album came out in like 2016, and then had no idea that he was in Dillinger Escape Plan, and I found that out, and I was like, oh, that's weird, because it's like electronic music. I got into it because the guy from Telephone Tel Aviv was doing it, because I'm a big fan of them, and then then I listened to the albums he did of Dillinger. I was like, this is fucking weird, like it's like so different. And the one thing I do give respect for Dillinger is that I think they got back together now, but their last tour before they split in like 2016 or whatever, 2017, they played all these like tiny venues, and they played a venue here that was called the Streets of London. That was a punk bar that I played a show there. And let me tell you, we had to set up the PA. We had to do everything ourselves. Like, they just unlocked the door and they're like, here's the PA.
So, go for it.
Luckily we knew, we knew what we're doing. And so we had to set up everything, and how like punk bars, like everybody's like super, like everybody works there is like super rude.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And So, but I will say that's the most money we ever made at a show because they gave us part of the bar. So I was like, hey, it's worth the fucking hassle. But that was the place they played. It's like this tiny fucking venue on this little, like, weird little like island between two streets and on downtown Denver, like I don't know, like kind of shitty part of the town, like and that's where Dillinger Escape Plan played like one of their last shows here. So it's kind of
pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm sure that shit was packed as fuck. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they're cool. Like their music's it's technically proficient stuff, but I respect them all as musicians, but like it's just I just can't get into it really,
Yeah, the music's too much for me. Like I don't like music that's spastic. You know what I mean? I don't like music that's like. That's why I don't like Mr. Bungle or Faith No More or
I'm not into that stuff.
The works of Mike Patton. I'm not I don't like any of that kind of shit. So like it's just not for me.
I feel like I'm the odd man out you and I, because we don't like Mike Patton. I mean, once again, he's a guy who's incredibly talented. Like I think he's a great singer, he's a great vocalist, but his music just doesn't do it for me. And
no.
If anything, probably the record that he hates the most is the one I probably like, the Real Thing, the one that has like the Black Sabbath cover on it. That's like probably the one that I like the best by them, which is probably like their least favorite collectively as a band.
I think the only Faith No More I like is the stuff before he joined.
Oh, the Chuck Mosley stuff.
Yeah, I actually kind of like those albums. I don't like
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really like the rest of their stuff very much. Yeah, and yeah.
Dude, I remember like back in the 80s when I was like a young kid. Back in the 80s going into New York City, I used to go to see shows at the Ritz, and I just walked in. I was like 16 years old. Like I legally wasn't allowed to go into that place, but there was no one challenging me. I just walked in. And
right.
I saw X, I saw the Cramps, I saw Dead Kennedys, I saw all these bands play there. And they used to play videos, like they used to have like a video screen, and that's where I saw that We Care a Lot video.
Yeah,
and also the True Men Don't Kill Coyotes Red Hot Chili Peppers video. And it was like those two things, like I always associate them together for some reason.
I can kind of see why you associate them though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're kind of from that same group of things.
It's just it was just it's a weird time,
those bands, Primus, I just don't like it. Like Chili Peppers, I like a couple songs here and there. I'll be honest, like they have like a few songs here and there I think are okay, but I'm overall not too into that. I'm not really into that whole like
no.
That whole trip, you know what I mean?
I'm going to say something that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are one of those bands that I don't know. I'm going to say it, man. I kind of like that band in a way that is completely diametric to the way I normally listen to music. There's something about it that's like, and I don't want to say I ironically like them, but it verges on irony the way that I like that band, because I know that it's bad music. Like I know that
But I think they have some stuff that's genuinely good. Like I do like the album Californication. They have that song Other Side, which I think is actually very good. Like they have songs I really like. You know what I mean?
Well, the players are great, obviously, but
yeah,
there's something about the corniness of Anthony Kiedis that I find it kind of compelling in some ways, because it's just so ridiculous, because the dude he can't sing and he can't rap or he can't do anything really like requires talent except for jump around on stage. Really, he's great at that. No, he's a great front man, but the way like David Lee Roth is not a great singer and he's a great front man, yet he's a great singer in the same way that he's not a great singer.
Yeah,
Anthony Kiedis falls short though in the vocal department. Like, at least David Lee Roth's doing something interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kiedis, like, yeah, he can. I guess, and again, like, like when he's actually does stuff that's kind of like that he can pull off. It's not bad. Like,
yeah.
I do like I mean, particularly being adolescent in the late '90s, like you couldn't escape Californication,
No,
like that whole
yeah,
album. Like,
yeah,
so of course I had it, and and still do, and so I do like songs on that. I never really liked like I feel like all the rest of their albums are like hit or like they don't have a great like they're one of those bands that doesn't have a good album for beginning in. You know what I mean? Like, uh, Blood Sugar Sex Magic has like some really great songs, and then there's some really awful songs on it too. But I don't hate Chili Peppers in the same way I hate like Primus
yeah, yeah.
and uh Faith No More and my you know what I mean? Like I have some time for some Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is kind of I've noticed is a hot take for some people because it seems like some people like really hate them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't hate it, man. Like, it's one of those like like one of those bands where like we'll listen to like in the van or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, but also unironically enjoy it though. You know,
Yeah.
and like I was saying, like Kiedis is like this. You know, being from the East Coast, you know, he's this Cali dude. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we just don't
Yeah.
have guys like that here, you know? Like it's just that's just not that archetype doesn't exist in the tri-state area. So it's interesting to have a dude like that, you know, it's Cali surf guy, you know.
I like the album that they did with Dave Navarro
Wow,
as
yeah,
well.
dude, Dave
Yeah.
Navarro is the man. I love Dave Navarro.
Yeah. He's like although his Dave Navarro's solo album wasn't so great, but but
No,
it
no,
had some good songs on it though.
he's yeah, he's not like he's a side man, you know what I mean? Like he's a great guitar player. Like he's not someone who should really be, you know, the center of the band, really. You know, that's why I'm not surprised his solo records weren't really that great.
Yeah, I bought it back in the day. It has a good, cool cover of Venus and Furs, though. So, but it's not the worst. I would say that when it comes to guitar player guys who make solo albums, it's one of the better ones that I've heard compared to like Johnny Marrs or like Bernard Butler from Suede. Like his his solo album's pretty bad, but
Yeah.
like it's not the great. It's a little overproduced part of the problem. Like, but
Well, yeah. One one of the
the
things I like about him as a player, though, is that he runs like his rig is like super old school. It's like two JCM 800s and all Boss effects. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He's got like the same Boss chorus that I have, you know, and the DD4 and all that sort of stuff.
I think it's, coming up in the 80s, you know what I mean? Like he's just
Yeah.
kept the same like rig that he's always had probably got in the 80s like all of his JCM and Boss effects, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you know, and that I saw some footage of them on that ill-fated Jane's Addiction tour, and he was still running the same gear, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah. The he's got his tone. I like the Jane's Addiction albums except the thing with Jane's Addiction is that I'm not too big on on Perry Farrell's vocals,
Nah, dude, that guy
but
shot. Yeah,
But you kind of you like them despite that. You know what I mean? Because the music's interesting. You know what I mean?
yeah, that dude, like I always felt this. He was like creatively like the weak link of the band in some ways. You know, like I thought, but then again, his charisma is probably what made them as popular as they were. You know.
Yeah, but yeah, you kind of can imagine though. The other thing is he kind of had a lot of the ideas, but it's kind of one of those unfortunate things where you're like, if he could just sing a little better, those albums would be better. But they're still not bad. Like I like Nothing Shocking and
Yeah.
the second album. I haven't listened to him in forever, but particularly as a teenager, I listened to him quite a bit.
I recently broke them out because of all that drama that happened on that last you know, when Perry like smacked Dave on stage or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of like dug out those first couple records and listened to them a bit during that period. Really good. Definitely brought back some memories. Really good stuff though.
Yeah, I need to give him a listen. I mean, the bass playing, what's his name? The bass player was fucking
Eric
insane.
Avery.
Eric Avery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some great stuff. They're definitely interesting to me because they were kind of melding like obviously influences from like '80s goth music with like heavy metal and maybe even '80s glam rock and
A little bit of that.
um, like all kind, and maybe like there's a little bit of that kind of funky guitar here and there. Like it's such a weird mixture of shit, but it kind of all works together.
I feel like in the 80s, a lot of those bands, late 80s, early 90s, that crossover that was not like grunge music and it wasn't like heavy metal, had that sort of funk rhythm to it. There's a lot of funky bass playing and drumming in those bands.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder why that is. But it was definitely a big thing in that time period.
Yeah. But that sort of like the combination of the gothic sort of vibe into heavy metal, I always thought that was cool. Like that was like definitely like a hard 80s thing, like especially like the bands like the Cult doing that with they between records they went from making Love, which is still my favorite Cult record, into making Electric, which sounds like AC/DC, yet.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of bands that kind of followed suit, and then there was even, I thought, some glam bands in the late 80s, some glam metal bands, hair bands that sort of took on a little bit more of a gothic sort of feel to their music.
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. And they had a big influence on like the 90s, a lot of those goth metal bands like 69 Eyes or a lot of those Finnish bands, like a lot of them were influenced by both those 80s glam bands and Sisters of Mercy, and like because I definitely think Vision Thing from Sister of Mercy was a big influence because that's basically a metal album. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then of course you get into like, Paradise Lost and all that kind of stuff. I definitely feel like there's like this kind of weird crossover point with all these things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, probably my favorite band from that Finnish scene though is Babylon Whores, man. I love that band.
Yeah, them and I really like Caron, Charon, that band from Finland. Like that's right my favorite. I mean, because I unironically like him. I like Poison Black and 69 Eyes and all those bands, but Sentence, of course. But the Caron band I think is really good because I really like the vocalist in that. He's probably one of the best vocalists in that scene.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Yeah.
they just have like I don't know. I really like that kind of stuff, and ironically, is that kind of being into that kind of melodic gothic metal stuff like that. Like it's part of what led me getting back into like the '80s glam metal stuff because I started seeing like a weird crossover, particularly when you get like Dokken and stuff like the guitar riffs and the songwriting structures. I was like, oh, this is where these bands got this stuff from.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Like even like some of the later LA Guns records, had a little bit of that vibe to it. I
Well,
mean,
69 Eyes called themselves as a Helsinki vampires, so
yeah,
like from because of Hollywood vampires.
right. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, I was just saying like that stuff's really cool. And like, that's also a huge influence on the shit that I try to do too. A lot of that stuff for sure.
Yeah, and of course, Fields in the film. I mean, they basically became particularly the in the film that I feel like maybe Carl McCoy was going to those festivals and hearing bands like uh, Moonspell and stuff, and be like, I kind of want to make something similar to that, and so he did. You know what I mean?
Dude, that record's great, man. And it's like that song Wake World is like fantastic. It's that record when I first heard that record, Zune, it was not really, I was like, I don't know about this. It's like the vocals are distorted. It has like heavy metal production. It wasn't really what I was looking for when I first heard it when it came out. But then like once again, one day driving in the van late at night, iPod, I had it on there. Everyone's asleep. And I'm like, you know what? Let me put this on. I haven't listened to this in 3 or 4 years. And I was all in. Suddenly that became like, and they play a lot of those songs when the Fields of Nephilim proper, perform. They play a lot of songs from that record too, as well as the other material, like, from, their earlier albums like Elysium and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I love Zune. It actually got reissued last year.
Yeah.
I need to pick up a copy of the reissue, but and I love Morning Sun, like that the later album. It's
Yeah,
fucking
dude.
amazing.
Hell yeah.
And The it's actually kind of relevant all this stuff because later on in the so my plan like this year is I'm gonna try to get some more stuff for Silver Cord. We're gonna try to do like an EP, and then my other things I want to work on is I kind of want to bring back Warlock because like
Yeah.
and Drew Goff's gonna do drums for me on that, and so I kind of want to do some stuff with that. That's more ironically more difficult like process than like with black metal. Like it just is something that I literally can sit and riffs come out. You know what I mean? I just play the like literally like it's pretty simple. It's very much like in my blood, you could say, but and other stuff is a little bit more complicated because you have to like the songwriting. Song written. There's more songwriting in the classic songwriting sense because you got verse choruses. Like I want there's clean singing, so I have to make sure that as I'm writing it, that the singing is going to go with what I'm playing, and you kind of have to write everything of a piece when you're writing stuff that's going to be a little bit more like melodic or rock metal based. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely more time consuming. And yeah, you can just kind of go for it with like the more like brutal like raw stuff.
Yeah, and so but I want to do some more stuff with that, particularly with having like real drums and uh and particularly bring that one back because I listened to a lot of those albums and I want to get back to like the kind of more that first album I did was like very like I guess more on the hard rock metal goth metal side of things with like some like punk elements and I'm kind of want to I think I'm going to bring it back more to that with some of the goth rock stuff that project kind of turned to, but I think it would be cool. But I do want to kind of like really drop on that whole, like I always want it to be like those kind of bands, like, but like satanic, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah, like, because that's always a disappointing thing. Like, I love a lot of those bands, but outside of like in the film and stuff, there's not too many of them that are like occult even, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Babylon Whores have like some occult themes in their songs, and definitely feels Carl McCoy is definitely someone who is like into like the occult and like that sort of philosophy. If you're even just reading the lyrics, you can tell.
Yeah, yeah. Babylon Whores is another one. There's some newer bands like Night Eternal. I don't know if you've really gotten to Night Eternal, but like they're like super occult, which I love.
I think either you or Jay Bennett told me about them. I can't remember who turned me on to them originally, but yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, like they're great. I think it's just a bit more of those kind of bands, but it's definitely like, even in the goth world, not just like the kind of just the whole thing. Like, well, Moonspell have definitely are cult, like in a lot of times and satanic, but like it's kind of like I love Paradise Lost. They're one of my favorite bands, but it's kind of like, what would it be cool if Paradise Lost was like a satanic and a little bit sleazier? I mean, that's kind of the concept, like for what I want to progress with that. So it's going to be a little bit of work because I'm also very picky. Like it takes me a lot longer to write those songs. So that might be a process. And then outside of that, there's going to be a split with Death Horde. We're going to put out after the EP because the EP is going to come out on Halloween. So people got a little while to wait to hear the Blood Scourge EP, but which is called Black Flame of Satanic Blood. That's the name of the EP.
Nice, so, excellent.
But so we're gonna put out a split at the end of the year with Death Horde, and then the goal is for next Whopper Just Knocked to have the full length. So I figured to start early so we have plenty of time.
It's always better to have more time to plan these things and get production happening. It's always better to have time, than try to rush things for sure.
Yeah, because I kind of when we decided we're going to put the demo out on While Purchase Knocked, and I was a little behind. I didn't get to like finalizing the mix until like 3 days before or something, and it was kind of like oh fuck, I gotta get this done. Like it's like I don't want to do that again,
Yeah,
but
totally.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like being able to kind of drop on all this kind of stuff. Like, it's been kind of, I think that um I think it's important, like, like most of the old black metal musicians, like they all listen to tons of different shit, even back to like Euronymous and all them listening to like Kraftwerk and Demanda Galas and The Cure, and they're all listening. And I think there's also an element in the metal scene where they listen to is metal, right? You
Yeah,
encounter those kind of guys.
totally.
But I think as a musician, like it's good to listen to different stuff, even if your music, like, Antichrist, Blood Scourge, like I'm not putting all of that stuff in there, but I mean, I'll admit that one thing I did on this was that while I was writing everything, I didn't listen to anything remotely similar to it. I was like listening to like the Cars and like Sacred Skin and totally opposite music because I didn't want to be influenced by other metal bands when I was writing it.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
always that's a good practice too. I think inadvertently I do the same thing because like, I listen to a lot of stuff just like you do, you know what I mean? When I'm focusing, when I was really in the midst of writing a lot of the material on the what's going to be the new Tombs record, I wasn't listening to black metal or anything really extreme like that, you know. And it's definitely good to not inadvertently rip someone off or be influenced by another band.
I think it lets you kind of like a big thing that's important to me is expressing your own voice with things,
Yeah.
like your own style, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that Tombs has always had, and that's definitely something that's important to me. Like, I don't think the Blood Scourge stuff sounds like anyone in particular. It's
No.
kind of similar to some stuff, but particularly when you listen to it in its totality, it doesn't sound like almost anything. I don't know of any band that sounds like what we're doing. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I was excited, particularly when you guys asked me to just, contribute a little bit on that one song, because you shared some of the stuff with me prior to that, and I was like, oh, this is like, I got the keyboard stuff is what really grabbed me. You know what I mean? Honestly, like it made it everything sounded very unique, and it was very much something that I thought was its own style and its own feel. And that's why, I'm like, oh, this is going to be great when it's finally finished, and you guys have it ready to go. And then when you asked me to be, part of it, take part in it, I was like, oh, this is great because like I like to be involved with things that are unique, and I think that the Blood Scourge stuff is like, really cool on that level.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, that's something I'm going for. Like, but I think it helps that I'm not a person who can ever, I can barely play the same thing twice, exactly the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely like, and I'm not very good at band covering
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm the same
Yeah.
way, man.
Like,
I can't
yeah.
play other people's music.
Yeah. I struggle. Like, there's a few like I can do Misfit songs, no problem. Like Misfit's easy, but like like as long as it's simple, I can do old songs. Like I did a bunch of country songs for like an EP for my solo stuff. Like when I was first getting into doing my solo album, I kind of broke myself in with stuff by doing a bunch of country songs I grew up listening. My dad played.
Yeah.
Um, and doing my weird versions of it. I can do old songs because they're simple. They're just chords and singing. You know what I mean? Like, but as soon as you're like, oh, we got to play all these different riffs at somebody else's riffs, I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. Like,
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. Like the other guitar player, Dan in Tombs, can play like Van Halen and ZZ Top and like he can sit down and play like all these songs, and I'm just like, damn, dude, like, I could barely play the songs that I wrote.
yeah, that's kind of my attitude. But it's good to have somebody like that in your band, though. Like, particularly backing you up, like doing helping you like be real tight and shit. Like, it's good to have something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not that kind of person.
No,
Like,
no. Yeah, definitely not.
but and I realized that limitation pretty early, and I think I've always been attracted to people who are that way. So, obviously, I was very attracted to like Tom G. Warrior from like because it's like Celtic Frost, and then when he did Triptychon and Hellhammer, like I'm like this is like achievable, in some way what he's doing, and like with Hellhammer in the sense that, but you can never really quite achieve it because he's like a genius, but it's like it just is like it's more simple, like, and he's doing his own thing, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and he's creating his own sound, and And I think like in the early black metal scene, it was all about creating your own sound. It was all about doing this stuff. Of course, like even old punk scene, it was all about doing creating your own sound. It was always, it's when things become more standardized with time, it becomes like a way you do stuff. But I'm like all about like creating your own sound, doing your own thing. Obviously have your models like, Bathory or whatever, like, like for certain ideas for production. Like I'll kind of go to stuff for like production ideas, but maybe not like for what I'm trying to do, songwriting or guitar tone or like I have my own ideas for what I want to do for that and my own vision. And it's like that's what's going to come out. You know what I mean?
Nah, it's awesome, man. That's definitely the way to do it for sure. All right, dude. Well, thanks for spending time with us tonight. You'll be hearing from us again with the next installment of Darkness Weaves, where we just finished up um, The Dark Crusade, which was a great Kane novel. And up next
Yeah.
is actually Darkness Weaves, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the next one. And I'm going to put out that I didn't want these to come out like right next to each other necessarily. You know what I mean? Because when you're like, oh, let's do this episode, I was like, I don't want them to come out like on the same day or like what, because that's a little confusing. You know what I mean? So I was like, so I'll put that out next week. So
Cool.
people will hear that right. And then because the month's almost over, which is fucking crazy. And
Dude, it's almost midpoint of the year, and it's like, it's funny. Like I was thinking about that, because the year's almost half over with, and there's been a lot of good records that came out, but like as far as movies go, man, I've been kind of unimpressed with the horror stuff that's come out this year so far.
yeah, I haven't really seen anything that's that great. I know that Brandon shared something called Frail Walka, which heard was pretty good, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
I've been on like a trip of like 80s, early 90s. Like I've been like I'm like Aliens and
Yeah.
Terminator and I don't know all that kind of shit. That's what I've been on. So I haven't really like particularly recently. So I haven't really been keeping up. But even when I don't know. I just don't. I haven't seen a lot of new stuff that's like all that interesting to me. So it's like I'd rather
Yeah.
just watch like fucking some old movies, really, or like I've been trying to get also when it comes to horror, I've been trying to get caught up on watching more giallo stuff. So I watched like All the Colors of the Dark
Oh yeah,
for
man.
the first time and
Yeah,
The
man.
Strange Vice of Mrs.
Yep.
Ward.
Great stuff.
Yeah. What's Sergio? Is it Sergio Martino? Right?
Sergio Martino, yeah.
Yeah. With Edwig Finch.
Edwige Finesse, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to watch. I think there's six of those movies. I've been trying to watch some of them. Some of them are on Criterion Channel. Some of them are on. They used to have a couple of them on Shudder, but now they only have The Strange Vice. But I really liked watching that one and watching All the Colors of the Dark because they played me with All the Colors of the Dark because the main bad guy in Strange Vice is actually a good guy and All the Colors, and I had no idea. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, it's cool how that happens. Yeah. Yeah, there's actually I have the Arrow app too, and they have a whole Giallo section on there. So I mean, that's just yet another app to streaming platform. But I watch a lot of the stuff on Arrow is because they have like kung fu movies and crime films and stuff like that on there as well as horror.
Yeah, to be honest, I end up using Arrow a little bit more than Shutter because it's got kind of a weirder range, like kind of more of a range of different weird movies. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And they have more giallo on there and more foreign sort of Asian cinema kind of stuff on there too.
yeah, definitely. But I really am enjoying the Sergio Martino movies. Like those are fucking really good. Like I know you guys covered The Strange Vice and Your Heart is a Locked Room.
Yeah, we've done
Um,
that.
but yeah, All the Colors in the Dark is awesome because it's like a fucking like 60s satanic cult movie or
Yeah, we
70s
should
satanic
do
cult
that.
movie.
We should get back to we haven't done an Italian film in a while. We've been doing these like we're on this like New York, Brooklyn sub series now, and the next episode of Necromaniacs is not it's we're doing Last Exit to Brooklyn, which is like it's not really a horror film, but it's a horrible experience. Like it's just like
Yeah.
horrible people doing horrible things to each other.
That that
You know,
that was directed by the same guy who did Christiane F, right?
Christiane F, which is a
Yeah.
fantastic movie. Um, but it somehow thematically fits what we've been doing. We did Jacob's Ladder, and that has like a New York feel to it. It's the Sentinel, which takes place in Brooklyn. There's like, so me and Mike were like, let's do like a Hubert Selby movie. We were gonna do the one that takes place in Coney Island. What the hell's the name of it?
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, Requiem for a Dream. But Last Exit won out, and it's I forgot, I haven't watched it in years, man, and I forgot how hard it is to watch that movie.
I've actually never seen the movie. I've read the book,
dude.
which is
the book.
pretty.
Yeah,
It was rough to slug to get through.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, I've read pretty much all of Selby's books, and it's the movie's different. It's like a part of the book. It's not really the whole book.
Okay.
And there's some of the character like Tra-la-la's in it, from the book. But watching the movie, it's like so just bleak and hard to watch, and
Yeah.
very uncomfortable.
I imagine. I need to watch it at some point. What? Yeah, because I've never seen
Yeah,
it.
I think it's free on Amazon on Prime. So if you
Okay.
got a Prime account, you can just watch it. That's how I think I watched it. You know, and it's got early Jennifer Jason Leigh, Frank Vincent's in it, has a small part. It's like you know, a lot of familiar faces. Stephen Lang, um, one of the Baldwin brothers is in it. I think not Stephen Baldwin, like whatever, Ron Baldwin. Like there's a million of those guys.
They all kind of look the same. Yeah.
Yeah, they got that Irish face. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, check it out, man. I mean, we're gonna talk about it this week. So it was brutal.
The it's kind of funny you brought that up. You guys are doing it because I was a podcast I listened to, the Bloodhouse one.
Yeah.
They were talking about watching on the most recent episode. They were talking about one of them watched Body of Evidence, which is that guy's movie with Madonna and William Dafoe.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that
Yeah.
decades ago, probably. Yeah.
Which apparently is like trashy fun. Like I've never seen that movie. I remember I've seen like maybe like the trailers and because of course Madonna was in it. And that was like
dude.
that was right when she did Sex, like the Sex book.
Dude,
Yeah,
Madonna,
the same year.
Madonna's, back then, that she was my favorite, man. Like her, like Madonna and back. I personally like the '80s Madonna the best. You know what I mean? Like the little disco chick. That was like my favorite Madonna.
Yeah, I like that, and I like the Sex album and that kind of early '90s as well. And yeah, apparently neither her nor William Dafoe used body doubles in this movie. So, and there's like steamy sex scenes where she's like dripping wax over on him and shit. So
I'm not surprised, man.
Yeah, and I'd like to. I haven't seen those movies. I need to watch it. Like I think that I'm like intrigued because it's got like Joe Mantegna and Julianne Moore and Jürgen Prochnow and Ann Archer, produced by Dino De Laurentiis. You know what I mean? Like it sounds interesting, and it's also an interesting idea that William Dafoe's like the Michael Douglas role in this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, the Michael
Like,
Douglas role. That's
yeah.
right. He's like the scumbag, like in the steamy. Yeah, Michael Douglas made his career doing that. It's always, this always comes up in every conversation, is that awful sweater that he's wearing in Basic. Like he's in a dance club with like a brown V-neck sweater. Like, come on.
Yeah. Doesn't he wear something similar to that in Fatal Attraction too? Like at one point, yeah. Like
Probably, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He's the best at that role. He made a career out of being that guy.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
My favorite of those is Basic Instinct though, because it's Paul Verhoeven, and I love
Paul Verhoeven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I have the unrated like DVD for that one. Like I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of Paul Verhoeven. But I mean, the funny thing again, another connection is that Jacob's Ladder, of course, was done by the guy who did like Fatal Attraction and a ton of those fucking movies. So, it's a weird, like they all connect in some weird way.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I love the 80s and 90s erotic thriller movies. I just think they're like a lot of fun.
Dude, me too, and it's something that they're fun and they're sleazy, and they just have like completely unbelievable plots in them too, which is awesome.
Yeah, they're sleazy, they're sexy, they're they're kind of like noir. They're
Yeah, they are.
They're like sexed up noir stories. You know what I mean?
Yep. And some of them even dip into that giallo like sort of realm too. Like for example, the movie Body Double,
Yeah,
with Melanie Griffith. That's basically a giallo film, like the plot. I mean,
basically.
we
Yeah,
talked about this on Necromaniacs a bunch about the American giallos, like, you know, that's definitely one of them for sure.
that was probably one of the first one of those kind of movies I saw as a kid because my stepdad had all these VHS tapes, and it ended up being pretty important. Like he had that movie Body Double, and my mom and him, they would like work all day and leave me and my stepbrother alone during the summer, like because I go up and I stay with my dad most year, but I go up for the summers, and we'd be me and my stepbrother at my mom's in the mountains, and we'd be basically on our own.
Yeah.
I was 6, he was like 9. We're like on our own all day. And we just like, wander around the woods and watch movies and shit. And they really didn't, they would let us rent anything. So we'd be renting like martial arts movies, horror
Yeah.
movies. That's how I saw the first Hellraiser thing I saw. I was like 7 years old. I saw Hellraiser 3 because we rented it. And one of those first of those kind of movies was and that's actually I saw Blade Runner and stuff too, like a lot of movies. But the first one of those movies was Body Double. My stepdad had Body Double, and me and my stepbrother watched it like a few times actually. That was one of the movies we watched a bunch, and I definitely think that was one of those movies like when you're a little kid and you kind of have those like kind of feel those feelings. You don't really know what they are when you're watching the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When you're watching Melanie Griffith, young Melanie Griffith, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's legit a good movie though. Like I own a copy of it somewhere. I don't have a Blu-ray. I have like an old DVD of that movie for sure. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's so good.
I love all those Brian De Palma ones, and you guys have covered all of them, like the basic Body Double and what's the one with the
Dress to Kill.
Dress to Kill, and
Yeah, that's straight up a giallo film, straight up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got like the glove killer and everything. So
yeah, and it's clear. I mean, I'd love to hear an interview with him, like talking about that kind of stuff, because remember back then, it's like a lot of those films, the Italian films, didn't even really make it here. Like you had to see that in a movie theater in the late 70s, or go to a festival somewhere, or go in Europe to see it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if De Palma went to Europe and saw those movies and took them over here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those films didn't even get released in the States until the 90s.
Yeah.
So
I definitely think you guys should cover All the Colors of the Dark, though. It's on the Criterion app.
Oh yeah,
and it's different because it's not really a true giallo, and it's like, but it kind of is, but it's got this like satanic cult angle, which is awesome, and it was very surprising. Did not go anywhere I was expecting when I was watching.
I mean, it's definitely something that me and Mike have talked about for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, it's in the running list of movies that we're are on deck at some point,
Yeah, I definitely become a big fan of Sergio Martino and Egui Finesse movies. Like, I'm like, I want to watch all of them because it's just, she's so beautiful in the movies.
Man.
It's like, so like magnetic, like film star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, thanks, dude. Like I said, we'll be coming back at you guys with another episode of Darkness Weaves. I'm sorry, Darkness Weaves.
Yeah.
And covering Darkness Weaves, the Kane novel, and then we're going to be moving on to other Karl Edward Wagner material after that.
Yep, I got to get that one book that you have, and we'll go from there. And there's plenty of stuff to do.
Yeah, man.
Still, we're not quite there, and we'll have to track down maybe by the time we finish Darkness Weaves, I can track down like a pirated PDF of a Gothic Touch or something so we can read as Elric.
Yeah, no, totally. I got it.
Over. Yeah,
I definitely want to do that for sure.
Because that would be good to cover because it's like the final Kane story and it crosses over Elric. So,
hell yeah! All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.